Hello everyone, my name is Stanley St. Rose, and today we're going to be talking about The Notorious Jumping Frog of Calaveras County, written by Mark Twain. Now, before I go into summary analysis of this work, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, and or comment so that the channel can continue to grow. Now, before I go more into the summary and explanation of this story, analyze and all of that, keep in mind that this short story by Mark Twain, sometimes it goes by different names. Certain websites and it was published in different places. Sometimes they call it the Notorious Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. Sometimes it's the Celebrated Jumping Frog of Calaveras County. Sometimes it's the Jim Smiley story or that title. So different websites, different places call it by different names. And even Calaveras, the pronunciation, Mark Twain wrote his own version of the pronunciation. It's, he says Calaveras, but there's some places where it's like Calaveras. Like there's a subtle difference depending on where you're getting the story from. So just keep in mind of those changes. But the thing is, it's just a name or some sounds that are changing. It's all the same story. It's all talking about the same core main characters. This short story, depending on how you're looking at it, it can be funny, it can be interesting. It could say something about the American lifestyle or just American values. For some people, it's funny. When I was reading it, when I was going through it, I didn't take it as funny. It didn't make me laugh. There was no tee-hee. But there was no, I didn't have a tee-hee moment. I wasn't laughing. Hey Google, can you laugh? See, I wasn't doing that creepy laugh. I wasn't, laughing in the corner, or tee-heeing or anything like that. So it can be funny, but it really depends on what makes you laugh. For me, it wasn't funny. So let's just dive into the summary. Let's talk about what happens within the story. So basically, our narrator has a friend, and the friend is like, I need you to do a task for me, right? I need you to go into Angels, this town, this old mining town, and see if there's this reverend is still there, this Leonis W. Smiley, right? I need you to check on him, see if he's still alive. What's going on with him? He's a reverend. We know that, he's a man of God. So, just by doing some looking under the surface, you can say that, okay, maybe the narrator wants to see if this reverend is still doing his work. Is he still preaching? Is he still spreading the word? How is he doing as a human being, as a person, how is he doing his occupation? The narrator is set on a task. His friend is sending him to do something, to check up on a person for him. So that's how we get introduced to the narrator. That's how we get introduced to this world. And so the narrator sets off and he meets this guy by the name of Simon Wheeler. Simon Wheeler is in Angels. He's in this mining town. In this mining town, just by the way it's described, we can see that it's not that prosperous anymore. Maybe in the past it was prosperous when it was, at its peak, but now it's not that prosperous. Simon Wheeler pretty much spends all of his days in this bar, this tavern, and he's just like relaxing and, chilling and just doing whatever. He doesn't seem like he's like a working man, or he doesn't seem like he's working hard. We're not told that he works at a bar. We just know that he's just at the tavern, just there. And the narrator goes up to Wheeler and he's like, I'm looking for this, this W. Smiley. I'm looking for him. Do you have any information about him? Do you know where I can find him? And Wheeler tells our narrator, I don't know. There was this one guy here. There was this one individual by the name of Smiley. He was probably here during this time and this time. He was an interesting fellow, and Wheeler, he pretty much wastes the time of the narrator. The narrator tells us that Wheeler, he doesn't show him that he's any hint of emotion when he's talking about Jim Smiley, because the narrator asked for this W Smiley, but Wheeler doesn't talk about W Smiley. He's talking about Jim Smiley, this guy with the last name. So he's like, I only know one Smiley, and I'm going to tell you about him. And so the narrator, for some reason, sits down, and Wheeler kind of forces the narrator into a corner where he can't leave, and he's kind of intrigued a little bit. So Wheeler just starts telling him about stories about this Jim Smiley, and the narrator tells us the whole story about Jim Smiley that pretty much has nothing to do with the guy he's looking for, except that their last names are the same. So we learn about Jim Smiley, and Jim Smiley is, let's just say Jim Smiley is an interesting character. He's a notorious gambler. Jim Smiley will gamble with his soul. He participate in everything, anything that involves winning money, anything that involves gambling. Jim Smiley, the way that he's described by Wheeler, is that he'll sell his own mother if he had to, because he's betting on everything. He is trying to win money and everything, and he's quite lucky. Jim Smiley is quite lucky. He wins a lot of bets. He's not just playing so much because he loses all the time. He's actually winning a lot of the time. He's just a really interesting character. He's betting in chicken fights, cock fights, dog fights, cat fights. He had a weird cow for some reason. He's doing everything. He'll bet on you. Like, if two birds are sitting on a pole or on a power line or whatever, if they're sitting somewhere, he'll bet on with you which one's gonna take off first. Jim Smiley, he's just like he lives to gamble. He lives to play with money. That's his character. And so we're told about his adventures, basically the adventures of Jim Smiley, how he had a dog by the name of Andrew Jackson, how the dog died, how the dog used to fight in dog fights and bite the hind legs of dogs, but then there's a dog with no hind leg and the dog dies and the dog lost. Jim Smiley loses money here and there. He doesn't win all the bets. It's just crazy, like all the antics and all the adventures and all the things that go on with Jim Smiley. So we're told all of that. Then we get into the story of how Jim Smiley trained a frog to jump. Pretty much turned this frog. Like, he goes into the swamp, he finds a frog. He teaches this frog literally to be gymnastics. He trains this frog to know how to do gymnastics. This frog is like training with Jim Smiley. He's doing somersault, backflips, whatever. I'm exaggerating, but he taught the frog how to do all of this. And he says that the frog needed education, so I educated the frog. So yeah, Jim Smiley educates a frog, and then he makes a bet with this stranger that comes into town that is pretty new in the town. They wage $40, and Jim Smiley's like, okay, my frog can jump. It's the best frog in Calaveras County when it comes to jumping. And the narrator's, the visitor, the new person in town says, well, I don't have a frog, I can't really bet you. And Jim Smiley, he goes into the swamp himself. This is how dedicated and just committed to betting that Jim Smiley is. He just literally goes into the swamp, dives into the swamp after frogs, and frogs are not easy to catch. He doesn't care. He wants to bet. He wants to win his money. He wants to win. So he goes and finds literally a frog in the swamp. He takes the frog. He brings it back to this stranger. And the stranger cheats because he takes quail shots. And those are like for guns, I believe. They make the frog heavy. So the stranger takes quail shots and pretty much opens Jim Smiley's frog and shoves the quail shots down its mouth. And so the stranger, the new person in town, cheats by doing that. And when they race, Jim Smiley's frog doesn't jump. It's pretty much extremely weighed down and heavy. And the stranger wins $40. And after the whole race, Jim Smiley picks up his frog and he sees that his frog is extremely heavy. Then he sees the quail shots, and the frog pretty much vomits it up. And the race is over. The guy is gone. Jim Smiley loses $40, even though that he goes after and looking for him. He couldn't find the stranger. And pretty much we kind of like go back to the narrator, and because like we're following the story of the narrator, or the narrative of the narrator, his own life. We're understanding the life of Jim Smiley at the same time. So there's a lot going on here. There's it's like I would say there's, you know how sometimes when you watch a movie or you watch a series where there's like an A and B plot line. This short story is kind of like that, because the narrator and Wheeler are sitting at the bar talking about Jim Smiley, and then we kind of like get transported into Jim Smiley's world, and we learn all about him. So after the whole frog thing, we kind of go back into the narrator's world, and the narrator's like, man, I'm tired. I'm looking for a reverend, for a man of God, and I'm sitting in this bar talking about this man by the name of Jim Smiley that I don't want anything to do with. So that's kind of funny, because like you can think about life and how sometimes you meet people that will never stop talking. It's kind of like me sometimes with these videos. They're mad long sometimes, but I digress. So like the narrator's in this bar. He's like, I'm wasting my time here. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not finding this reverend. Wheeler is wasting my time. He gets up to go. Wheeler doesn't want him to go. He does end up leaving. And the story is kind of like Jim Smiley won a lot, but he lost a lot too. The narrator's kind of pissed because he's like, man, I don't even think this reverend ever existed. I think my friend just tricked me, or my friend was literally trying to waste my time. So the story kind of ends with the narrator pretty much leaving without being satisfied or not completing his journey, and thinking his friend is a horrible friend for wasting his time. And Jim Smiley, gets cheated out of $40, and his life was very interesting. And then Wheeler just goes back to being lazy and just staying at this bar, prepared and ready for anybody who wants to know about people in the town. I always find that fascinating, that in a lot of like old stories, I guess you could just walk into a bar and find somebody that knows everyone's lives, like that that neighbor that you have in your neighborhood that knows everything that's going on, who's always sitting on the porch and like watching with eagle eyes everybody and everything that's happening. I mean, there's some people who are like that, and Wheeler's like that. So let's go into the deeper meaning. Let's go into the analysis. Let's just talk about the characters real quick. So the characters, the narrator's friend, we're not told too much about him. He just sends the narrator to check on this reverend, and the narrator doesn't find this reverend, and the narrator pretty much, he's mad at his friend, and he's like, you just wasted my time. The narrator is, he seems loyal. I mean, when your friend tells you to go into this town that you've never been to find some guy you've never met, I mean, to do that, that's kind of, you're a good friend. So the narrator is like, he seems like a good person, but he's kind of pissed at the end, and he's like, why was I sent here, and why was I, trapped in this bar, being told about, having a lesson taught to me about this Jim Smiley that I don't care about. Simon Wheeler is again this lazy individual that just sits at a bar a day and relax and talk to people, random people who comes in and ask questions. Jim Smiley is just fascinating. He kind of like shows you that American spirit to be successful, to make it big. That ideal, because a lot of Americans have this ideal of, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to be prosperous, I'm going to triumph. There's this idea, because the American dream is all about that. The American dream kind of sells you the idea is like, as long as you try hard, as long as you want it, you're gonna triumph, you're gonna make it, you're blessed, you're lucky, you're fortunate, good things are gonna come your way. And in many cases that's true, but the thing is, like, that's not just for the American dream. That's true all around the world. I mean, people can be successful, people can be lucky, people can make it at any corner of the world. I mean, so long as you want that, you're looking for it, and you know how to succeed. So Jim Smiley had that about him, about, you know, being blessed, being lucky, making it, winning bets. It's kind of like tied in with this, like, universal belief that the universe is, you know, rooting for you and pushing you in the right directions. So that's one thing I get from Jim Smiley. So those are the characters. In terms of themes, in terms of, like, other things that are going on in here, it's deceit and lies. We see Jim Smiley get cheated out of $40. We see the narrator potentially getting lied to, or he got lied to. We see Wheeler wasting the narrator's time, and probably even lying to him about, you know, Jim Smiley, because Jim Smiley, for most people, he didn't really even exist. So there's a lot going on there. There's a lot about confidence and belief in oneself, because Jim Smiley certainly believed in himself and being successful. You know, you kind of saw the narrator's, you know, fervor and wanting to find this reverend, to find this man of God for his friend, but he couldn't. You know, there's a lot going on there, a lot about success and doing what you may. And even the town, I think, is significant because, you know, when miners were mining, it was the age of success, the age of, you know, you're going to make money by mining. And then this town is like this beaten up town, this old mining town. It doesn't seem like there's like a hustle and bustle in the town anymore. So the town kind of, from what I read, it kind of seemed like the town was dead and the success was no longer there. And the people, didn't seem like this town was, like, overflowing with people. So very interesting story. I think it shows us a lot of American beliefs and you know, a lot of mindsets of Americans, and it kind of, like, I can even see a little bit of Mark Twain's life in here, because Mark Twain was the same type of person who wanted success, who wanted to make it big, and he chased after it all his life, and he you know, he achieved it. I mean, he has several novels, several books. He's a world-renowned writer, author. I mean, you know, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer, all about, you know, that's Mark Twain right there. You know, he was chasing after success, and there's a lot of things that he invested himself into that weren't successful. So he knows a lot about success and failure. That was Mark Twain's life. So you can see some of Mark Twain's beliefs and things that he went through in his life kind of in a way appear within this short story. So very significant story. I still don't get the funny part of it. I mean, there's a few tee-hees. Let me see. Alexa, can you laugh?
Sure, I can laugh. Tee hee.
Okay, so there's a tee-hee by Alexa. I didn't call you. Okay, so, you know, there's a tee-hee right there. I can't laugh at this. I'm not a hoo ha ha away with this short story. It wasn't funny to me, but very interesting, and it's a good read. So that's my analysis perspective on this. Please remember to leave a like, subscribe, comment to help me grow the channel. And I'll see you guys in my next video. I don't tee-hee.